back a bit to your
Yes.
previous marriage. You know, Lucy, what happened to your husband, just in a minute?
It happened in 2002. He had just left home. Then he was involved in a car accident. And so in the evening, we just got the news that he was normal.
Okay.
So it was really a traumatic experience.
How old were the children at that time, the four?
That time, my firstborn was 11, the secondborn was 9, and the thirdborn was 4 years. Yes.
One thing I find, for me personally as a widow, I'm scared of is, you know, how do you actually tell your children, you know, how do you go about it? Did you tell them at the initial stages of your dating, or you took time to actually involve them in your relationship or even do the introduction? Because for me, it's a bit scary, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Actually, I get what you mean. Since even for the first time I introduced him, I actually introduced him as one of the parents to my children. and you know, he told me, I need to come and see your children.
Yeah.
That was after, I think, a year or so.
Yes.
Yes.
You had dated for 1 year then?
Yes, yeah, and I didn't want my children to, I actually was shielding my children against, you know, having visitors in the house. They knew that actually my last born was telling me, Mommy, you kept on telling me that God is my father.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the issues that we
Yes.
had to face. So I shielded them a lot. And when he told me that, let me just come, I visit you with my brother. So actually that was good, yeah.
Yes,
Coming
at
with
least.
another person
Yeah.
and just coming to visit. I introduced them to the children. And so they didn't even have an inkling of who he was.
Who he was.
Yeah, so he was just a visitor,
Yeah.
coming to visit us with a brother. And since our home was a home of visitors, they didn't know that it was actually the person that I was actually courting.
To them, God was their father.
Yeah, to them God was their father.
Mr. Otieno, how did you take that?
Well, you see, we have to be very wise when we are taking certain moves.
Yes.
I realized and I appreciated her position. And I had to understand the children,
Yes.
where they were coming from. Because I also had children who were very close to me. I knew they were her children were very close to her. So I just had to appreciate her. And you see, our society is such that ladies are very much disadvantaged when these things come up.
Yes.
Because you see, she wants to get out and get to a relationship. For me, it is bringing in.
Yes.
Adding is always an advantage in most cases. So for me, I had to understand her. And I appreciated everything, and I had to take her. That's why we actually courted for 3 years. I had to tone down my speed and take to her speed, so that we were in sync.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he actually, wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
You know, it begs the question of, did you said you dated for 3 years,
Yes.
but you did the introduction after 1 year officially.
Yes.
So did the children actually know you were dating at that time, you know, for the 2 years, or that is the time you took to deal with issues within the family?
Actually, after the introduction, it got into me that I needed to acquaint myself more with the children. In fact, her firstborn son was doing architecture. I had to get hold. I had a project being done somewhere. I got hold of the boy, put him into the car, and drove him off to Karen. We were just talking, chatting, and whatever project I was doing was related to his profession. So it gave us time to open up and to discuss and to talk a lot of
It's
issues.
kind of a father-son moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And after that, we had to be very, very cautious, particularly with the children. Because you see, these are children who you are coming into the mother's life, and basically it is between you and the mother. The children are a little bit outside, yet they are also core.
Yes, yes, yes,
Because
that's true.
my children, her children,
Yes. not becoming one.
Yes, we had to see how to balance. So we had to, we held a lot of meetings, and just impromptu meetings that I tell her, I'm coming home.
Yeah.
So I end up coming there.
Yes.
And then at a later date, we actually introduced the children.
So it's actually advisable for a couple that intends to actually get married after you have lost either of your spouses, not to rush. Because we have this tendency now of, you know, probably, like for me, I've been widowed for the last 4 years. If I start dating, or if someone does start dating, within a very short time, they didn't even get to know the children, how the family setup works, you know, and then they move on straight into marriage very fast. So that's actually not advisable to do that.
No, I don't think that's advisable. Since what we have realized, personally, I realized that, you know, it's you who is interested.
Yes.
The two of you are the ones who are interested in each other. The children are actually on another planet.
Yes.
And they are wondering, I mean, these two guys,
Yes.
what is happening? They're coming to destabilize us.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so you have to be very deliberate to involve the children. We held suppers in my home, in his home. Most of the times they would actually come to my home, plus the children, and we would have supper together.
Yes.
I would go into their home, and we actually now had to make sure that we were in the children, that we don't, most of our dating never took place outside the home.
Wow.
Yes, occasionally it was outside the home, but more often than not,
Yes.
it was actually supper in our homes.
To involve the children,
To involve
at
the
least.
children,
Wow.
so that they would actually now get to know each one of us better.
And the children get to meet as well.
Yes,
Yes.
they actually now started bonding. Incidentally, my firstborn, his firstborn are almost, they are 1 year apart in age. The secondborn the same, the thirdborn the same.
Wow. So they actually blended.
They actually, they were
Yeah.
actually now finding their age mates
Yes.
in each other, and they started now having their own relationship, kind of friendship.
Yeah.
And by the time now we were deciding, now he told me, now Lucy, it's time now we have to decide, we have to get married.
Okay. Now that brings the other issue of other families, in-laws.
Yes.
You know, the most dreaded topic on this planet, you know. You had in-laws, he had previous in-laws.
Yes.
That's already a family of 4. Yours, you know, those are 4 families. And now you have you coming and you're all coming again. You know, that makes 6 actually. How did they take it? And also knowing that you are ethnicity, you are Kikuyu, you're Luo.
I'm
right?
Luo.
Yeah, how did
Yes.
that go?
That was really, that was a tough end, because for me, I had very cordial relationships with my in-laws. Actually, we were very close with my mother-in-law.
Yes.
And so when it came now that now it was about getting married, I told God, just give me the courage. Because the first person I had to tell from the other side
Yes.
was my mother-in-law. And so I took a cousin of mine,
Yes.
and we traveled all the way to Murang'a, and we sat down with her, and I told her my intentions.
Yeah.
And she asked me a lot of questions, whether I would just forget about her. It was really
It's a
difficult.
concern.
Yeah, it was difficult for her because she had considered me a daughter. I was part and parcel of her life.
Yes.
So especially her, I needed her to understand. The rest of the family I knew would come in, but for her especially, I knew that we had a daughter-mother relationship since my father-in-law had already passed away. And so I needed to convince her that I needed to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as I was doing the convincing, I also was convincing myself that I actually needed to
you
move
were still,
on.
oh, you were still
Yeah,
in
I was
the-
actually, I was actually, it took a lot of prayers and just telling God, just God guide me.
Yeah.
Is this the right move? Am I making the right move?
Yeah, because I would feel you,
Yes.
because for me being a young widow and a lady,
Yes.
I feel concerned in the sense of, am I bringing the right person to my children,
Exactly.
you know?
Yes.
How, especially if you have girls, how is that going to go around with girls now having someone they can look up to? So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, that was, it was a major concern for me. And it took the hand of God, because even when we were in church,
Yes.
I had to go to my bishop. And I told my bishop, you know, there's this guy who is interested in me. And he actually now had to, I had to introduce him to my bishop, and they talked. They really had a long talk, and we prayed about it. We walked, they walked, my bishop and his wife walked with us, and all the questions that I had, because I was telling them, you know, I actually was not praying for a husband.
Yeah.
And Bishop told me, but he was praying for a wife, and you're his answered prayer.
Wow, I mean, that's a good one, because you know, when you
Yes.
talk, especially now when you start talking about in-laws and your mom being concerned.
Yes.
I remember we once had a conversation with my mother-in-law, you know, and she told me, Diana, I have released you can get married again, but you know, there was a but. You know, she's concerned that when you get married to a group of people, there is a chance that she may not be able to see her grandchildren after that. So was that the concern of your mom, or was it that she would feel neglected? Or
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
She had that concern
Yeah.
that I would actually not, I would not be concerned about her. The children would actually go. And even my mom, my biological
biological
mom.
mother.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, she asked him a question and asked him, now, since you're interested in my daughter, sasa mtahama, nyi ninaonekana mtahama alafu sasa muache watoto. And he told her no.
you leave the children with her?
Yes. Yeah, that
Okay.
she was actually not very comfortable, especially now him being Luo.
Yes,
This is a
yes.
different culture,
Yeah.
and they don't know how they treat children.
Yes.
So she'd rather have my children if it has
Then you
to be
move
that.
on and they end up being mistreated by the other family.
Yes.
Mr. Otieno, what?
I think it all takes the hand of God, as she has clearly stated. Apparently she didn't pray for a husband.
Yes. But you prayed for a wife.
I actually knelt down for a wife.
That's a very good one.
So when I met her, somehow I was just convinced
Yes.
this is my wife. Until when I told her, you know what, we will get married. And then she told me, Omera, you're in your dreamland.
She said that.
Yeah, she told me. And then I said, okay, fine, let me keep dreaming. But I'm seeing it coming.
Yeah.
I was that confident.
Wow.
But it takes the hand of God. But what you realize in our society, for men, it's a little bit easier. I actually sympathize with the widows because there are certain things that you also need to do, and you will need a spouse besides.
Yes.
Particularly in child upbringing. You'll need a man sometimes.
Yes.
I
And
hear they
decision
say-
making in the house, which is quite tough.
Sometimes you need a man. You see, for us as men, because of the setup of our society,
Yes.
I think it's a little bit easier. For me, making that decision was not hard. In fact, I was being pushed.
By family or?
Yes, by family
Yeah,
to
because
get
actually,
married.
it reminds me, you said you took 5 years to
Yes.
decide to move on.
Yes.
Most men don't take that long.
No, you see what happens?
Yeah.
It is what you put first. When ukifiwa, what one is supposed to do,
Yes.
you're supposed to mourn, and you are supposed to mourn yourself and help the children in
Yes.
mourning.
Yes.
But you see, most of us do a mistake, particularly men. We do a mistake, we rush.
Yes.
Then we end up getting a lot of head-ons with our children.
Yes.
But you see, when you help these children mourn, what you are actually doing is you are gaining confidence from the children. As in, the children will say, Daddy loves us. Show the children that you love them, you've mourned with them.
Yes.
It's a loss for all of you people. Mourn together, share a lot of things together, and talk freely. Then you will steal their confidence.
Yes.
What brings in a lot of conflict is a child does not trust you. Because you are ever
Yeah.
doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, to the extent that when you say, I want to bring in a stranger in the name of your mother, a child puts a question mark.
It's not easy for them to accept.
Yes, but mourn with the children, guide them because you are the mature one, guide them through to it. As it is, before we even got married, after we introduced our children, and now there was a certain level of level playing ground, we did a very simple thing. She never went visiting to her children minus me.
But that's before you got married.
Yeah, we were not married.
Actually, let's first drift back a bit.
Yeah.
You know, was there at some point that your in-laws did not accept her?
No, for me, I was lucky because my in-laws decided to keep away.
After your wife passed on?
Yes, they decided to keep away. So I had a lot of free time. The only people I had around were my brothers, sisters, and uncles from my side, and my parents who are still alive. Yes. And the only challenge that was a big problem was the issue of ethnicity.
Yes.
Yes. Because my father, being who he is, he said, Okuyu, not in my home.
You cannot bring a Kikuyu woman
you know,
in my home.
we say Okuyu.
Yes.
Yes, so Okuyu, not in my home. But I told him, Daddy, it doesn't mean that I'm marrying a society.
Yes.
I'm marrying an individual, and to the best of my knowledge, she is a Christian.
Yes.
And I think we've changed, and we should change our perception. So that is that is the biggest challenge that I had. It was just about ethnicity.
What did you do for them to actually now sit down and say, I have sat down as your father and I agree now it is okay for her to come in, because I understand the part of the parental blessing, you know, when you're getting married.
Yes.
What happened? What transitioned in between?
Okay. As we were courting, my dad was a bit unwell. I called him to Nairobi. He was living with me. I called her for an introduction. They talked, but still there were question marks. Then I said, it's okay. I let him go. Then I called in my mom, and mothers are mothers.
Yes.
And there's something about ladies that we might not understand as men with their children and even their perception of who you are interacting with. My mother, instead of talking to me, went and told my younger brother that yes, your elder brother introduced me to a lady. But I'm seeing that lady is not bad.
Wow. That's a positive coming from a mother.
Yes.
Yeah, we value
Then
that as women.
She went home. Then later on, she told me, after about, I think, 6 months or so, she told me, can you come home? Then I went home. And she told me a very, very simple thing. You are my son, and I know the lady you are seeing. I know you.
Yes.
And if that is where your heart is, I'm happy for you. Go ahead.
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing.
Yes.
That's actually, yeah, I wish it would be something that the society would embrace, because especially in terms of Luo and Kikuyus, you know, that's a controversial statement, especially when you come to a family. I don't even want to see the look on my mother's face, you know.
Actually, right now, they are best of friends with my mother.
Yes.
She calls him, he calls her, visit her even when in my absence. But at the initial stage, it was really difficult. We actually prayed and just told God, deal with the issues, because there are some issues that we could not deal with. If we were swallowed by the friends, the relatives, we would actually have lost focus on each other.
Precisely.
Yes, because there were those people who felt that you belonged to them. You know, my family thought that now our daughter is going away, and she has children, we are losing her. So that grip on you, that particular time when you're making such a decision is so strong that if you don't have divine intervention and trusting that God is on your side, in fact, most of the times we were just saying, if God is on our side, this is not an impossible situation. And the goodness is that as the church, the bishop just told us, make a decision, and they counseled us, and we made a decision. We invited all of them to our wedding, And they came. My mother that particular time could not. Actually, I think she came to witness that I was actually.
She was still in disbelief.
She was still,
Yeah.
she was still in disbelief. Yeah, and she came, and the goodness is that she came. That's
Amazing.
the beauty. Yeah,
you know, you
came.
mentioned something,
Yes.
Offset. You said that you have to put yourself first, consider what works for you, you know, before everybody else.
Yes.
Is that a safe place to be, or it doesn't seem to the outside family that you're actually neglecting them in some way, that when you don't consider what they're telling you, the advice they give, you know, you just say, this works for me, I will do it.
Sometimes you have to get to that place. Especially you evaluate, and if you look at it critically,
Yes.
it's when you're a widow, most of the times, yes, you have the support of friends and relatives, but actually most of the times it's you and your children.
Yes, yes, very true.
So a time comes when you have to evaluate and you say, what is the best for my children? Then they cannot see it at that particular time, but you see that they need a father figure. I know that we are told that you, as a single mother, you can actually have mentors even in church.
Yes.
But when God puts that in you,
Yes.
because me, I'm a firm believer, it's about God.
Yes.
And what God wants, how God wants to use you. So when God wants to use you in a way that you cannot imagine, because you know He says in Ephesians 3:20 that He will give you abundantly, exceedingly more than you can ever even ask
Yes.
or even imagine.
Yes.
So when you trust Him and you're faithful, then He knows what you need.
Yes.
And when He puts that seed in you, then He brings the person that He wants you to go to another level with. Then you have to really work with God.
You know, as a woman, how do you
Yes.
actually check on the kind of person you want to have, you know, for your children? How did you gauge that he was actually good to fit in the father's shoe for your children?
I actually I observed his relationship with his children, and I really admired.
Yes.
Yes, because his children were very close to him as a father.
Yes.
And that is what caught my attention. And then I would also watch him as he spoke to my children. Maybe he didn't know.
So don't love blindly.
No,
you know?
don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, when it is about children,
Yes.
I mean, God has put those children in your life to take care of them. Actually, in our last meeting, now when we were telling them about, now we have decided to get married, they asked us a lot of questions. Who is going to manage us? I remember my son asked, now who is going to be my manager? I mean, when you get married to him,
Because he was the boss now.
yeah,
Now he's becoming the dad.
is he now? Yeah, he asked in a family meeting, and his daughter, one of his daughters, also asked the same. That now the management, who is going to be questioning me?
Wow.
Yes, so
okay.
those were their worries, and so you have to consider them because you're not alone.
Yes.
You're not a single person.
Yes.
So you have to consider the children, and you have to really be patient with them, even when they have, because for them, I mean, this is your thing.
Yes.
And you want to drag us in, but you really have to be patient with them,
Yeah.
lovingly, showing them that this is the right person, and actually even selling him. I actually, you know, it's like you're selling him to them.
Yeah, yeah.
That look at him, look at what he does. Look, just observe him without subjectivity. Just, Aki, please, just look at him.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
now
don't
it's
judge
like,
him yet.
Yeah, don't judge him.
Yeah.
Don't judge him by where he lives, what he does. Just judge him by from him being a person.
I think for you, the advantage for the both of you was that your children were of age to understand, you know. Mr. Otieno,
Yes.
how was it? What made you think that she would, you know, see that she would fit to be the wife or that you wanted or the mother of your children?
Well, when you meet a lady as a man, here was a scenario where I was getting into a second marriage at about 40, over 40 years. Really, you really need to look at the other person and see what exactly